All right. Hello, and welcome. Welcome to our Thursday hangout today. While we spend some time in our Aquatic Mammal Enclosure here at Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue. And so this is where we allow our orphaned otters and beavers, as well as any other animal that needs the big pond to help and recover. And so, seeing as we live in such anxious and stressful moment right now, thought it might be nice just to spend some time with our little glimpse into the natural world here through the animals that we rehabilitate, as well as the natural soothing aspect of water as well. And so my name's Dan, Dr. Dan Famini. I'm the veterinarian here at Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue. And if you guys have any comments or questions along the way, please do chime in. I'll verbally let you know what's going on at the center. If there's big demand, we might poke in somewhere else. But our plan today was just kick back, relax, and hang out with our webbed-footed friends here. And so this is a North American river otter, and we do also have in this enclosure 3 North American beavers. All of these are orphans who are growing and developing. All seem to be doing well. All seem to be in excellent health here at Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue. At the moment, this is our only significantly sized aquatic enclosure, although we are in the middle of building a second one to be able to increase our capacity. Part of the reason why we need such significant options is because beavers in particular have an exceptionally long window in terms of growth and development and maturity before they are ready to return to the wild. Coming in as young as they are, they're going to need to be with us for over a year before they're going to have the skills and capacities to head back out. Now, otter, on the other hand, it's longer than some species, but it's a matter of months, and so hopefully, towards fall, our otter here will be ready to head back. And so you can see him hanging out, peeking at us repeatedly from behind that pole. He could be diving, he could be running away, but it is pretty typical behavior for him to be wary, for him to be kind of focused on us. You can see, although he is doing grooming and natural behaviors, he keeps stopping and checking in and looking in on the strange occurrence that is the humans in his enclosure. And so the otter is a very native otter, coming from the Sonoma area of Sonoma County. And so both of these are native, both of these are found in Sonoma County and the counties around. And so we don't get these animals in the same frequency as some of the others. Nothing like raccoons or opossums, of course. But these days they are pretty routine and regular visitors here with us. And so once you focus in on the 2 beavers over in the far corner there, you can zoom in on them. And so we got a couple. So beavers are exceptionally social, and so they will just hang out and groom each other a fair part of the day. And so the fact that this trio has each other is great for their development. These guys are much more wary of people than the singletons we've had in the past, which is excellent. Their maturity is going to be all the better. And so if you guys... and so, hello, Janine, one and all. Thank you guys for hanging out with us today. And so, of course, while both of these guys will share the same habitat, their use of the habitat, their diet, their natural history is, of course, very, very different. Beavers will kind of set up shop and hang out there, ideally lifelong. Otters are much more mobile. They'll go from one area to another. Depending on how big that area is, they'll consume the fish and the prey within and then move on to another. Versus the beavers, with their dam building and with their manipulation of the environment, will tend to stay in those family units for most of their lives. And so the beavers are really important, and I think we should have even increased appreciation for their impact these days, because they are one of the most critical members to help maintain a healthy watershed. And so the dams they make will help keep hydration in the larger area. Having those pools within our waterways is important for a lot of reasons. But if you have a healthy beaver population, then they are going to have more resistance to fires that we are also concerned about every year these days in Sonoma County. And so appreciate your beavers and the work they're doing to try to help protect our environment with us. And so the camera doesn't look too well underwater, but both these species are quite graceful as they go along. And so I see a question here about how to keep that pond so clean. Oh my goodness, it is a lot of work. And so every day we have to do our maintenance in terms of the filtration system, in terms of the pumps, whether we have animals in here or not. If we ever slow this down, then it is problematic. And so we, even when we've had months without animals in here, we do have to keep maintaining this pond up and running. When the big rains come in, and we have a lot of the runoff from the Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue is actually largely centered within a eucalyptus grove. And so the water will get discolored with a red stain from the leaves when we get a lot of rainflow, just from the runoff from the soil and trees around us. But other than that, it's just maintaining what we need to for the critters themselves. And so these beavers are a bit young to start doing any dam building or practice dam building yet. Of course, we do give them plenty of sticks and plenty of branches. They are already eating that bark as part of their routine diet. But later on, they'll work together to build some structures, and so we can enjoy that in the months ahead. But for now, as they are, and then for the otters, when we have otters in here, we will offer them fish. We'll offer them crawdads, and so they are really quite pretty much strict carnivores. I don't know if she'll ever feel threatened enough to show us her teeth. So far, she's able to, and so again, she has free reign in here. She can maintain whatever distance she wants, and is choosing to just be a handful of feet from us with the security of that pole between us. But otters, they're mustelids. They're in the same family group as weasels and stoats and skunks. And so they do have quite potent anal glands, nothing near the same capacity as skunks, of course. But it is definitely a sense that you will not forget if you ever get musked by an otter. And so if she were to feel threatened, then she would probably, first she'd try to flee, but then she would show her teeth, maybe musk at us. And so we want her to have this kind of wary distance. If she were coming right up to us, that would be a concern for how she'd behave and how well she'd do when returned to the wild. But this is a good, healthy behavior for this point.
Have these animals been sexed?
Have these animals been sexed? So with the beavers, I'm not sure we have definitively. So with a lot of species, you can absolutely just tell the sex by just genital vision. But beavers are different. There is a whole lot internal, including that scrotum itself. And so with beavers, there are some folks beaver biologists, who can identify the sex of the beaver based on the nature of their anal gland secretions. One gender is supposed to have a whiter, creamier secretion. Another gender is supposed to have a blacker, oilier secretion. And so that is one way which it's done out in the field. From the definitive veterinary perspective, we do it with x-rays, with a radiograph. And so there is actually, and so if you have kids listening, I am going to mention genitalia here, being born. But there is actually a bone within the phallus, within the penis of most animals, including beavers. And so if you take if you take x-rays with the animal positioned in the proper way, you can see the presence or absence of that bone. And that's how you can definitively know the gender on the beavers. If we have not done that on this trio, there hasn't been the indication to bring them in for that kind of workup. They've just been doing too well. That would require sedating them to get the positioning we need for that. And so we have not sexed those guys.
What's the approximate age of the animals?
Approximate age of the animals. Oh, they are in several months old. Oh, I should have pulled this up so it was right off the top of my head. So working here, I do appreciate all of our patients, but all our animal patients coming through here, but having a constant flow of otters and beavers. The details of every individual doesn't always stick in my head immediately, but but we're talking on the matter of about 5 months for both these guys is the overall ballpark by their size. In terms of more precision, I'd have to check their record, but that's the ballpark you're looking at. Otters do stay, so in the animal world, we'll use the word precocious or altricial. Those are fancy biology terms. Precocious meaning an animal that when it's born, it's up and running and out and eyes are open. Think of like a chick of a chicken, as opposed to altricial, which are animals where the eyes are closed, the ears are closed, they're much more helpless. Think of all the like songbirds, where you think of them, in the nest with those eyes closed, needing more help. And so otters have a more prolonged altricial period. Otters need bottle feeding, they need more help for a longer period of time than some of the other orphans will get in the center. The prolonged juvenile status can fool you a little bit on their age. But this one is hanging out about 5 months or so. Any other questions coming in? Okay. And so if the beavers ever get spooked, you will notice a very, very stark splash because they will slap their tail as they hit the water intentionally to dive down deep. That is part of their defense. And so these beavers are probably weighing, I have to check the most recent weight, but they're going to be somewhere in the probably 8-pound range. And so when they're full grown, they will be 40 to 60. They don't have to be quite full grown for release, but they do have to be much bigger than this. The tails will look skinny compared to your image of a beaver tail, and that tail will markedly widen as they mature. And so I'm just going to stand up for a quick second here, see if I can offer them a little bit of sweet potato. And I will float a sweet potato towards them and see if they have any interest. All right, here we go. Sweet potato torpedo. Not good one. All right, I will toss the sweet potato towards them, see if they have any interest. All right, so they were fed earlier this morning, and they've had their choice of foods for quite some time. So it's not entirely likely they're going to leap with excitement at the sweet potato, but of their options, that is one of their favorites. So I thought I'd give it a try. Sometimes otters will be quite playful. Sometimes they'll start playing with pine cones or other things that make their way into the waterway, and so you never know if that'll be part of what we see as well. And so thank you for joining us. We're going to just hang out here for a while longer in our aquatic animal enclosure. And so our goal here is just to give you some moments of peace, some moments of enjoyment here with just a handful of our animals. We are up to, again, over 170 different animals currently rehabilitating at Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue. We do remain neck and neck between raccoons and opossums in terms of the most numerous animal on site. The raccoons, we've had our big baby waves, and a lot of those juvenile raccoons you guys saw last week's video are out in the maturing enclosures, and so we still have about 45 or so raccoons, 55 raccoons on site. But the opossums, the second wave of baby, tiny orphan opossums is starting to come in. And so we're up to about 45 opossums. And so, oh, there we go. Look at that, chasing down that sweet potato. Oh, it can be a wily beast, that sweet potato. Let's see if he goes for it again. And so about half the animals on site are split between those opossums and raccoons. Oh, here we go. Oh, it's worth a nibble. It's worth a nibble. He's taking charge of that sweet potato. No two ways around it. Now is he going to take it on his own to try to keep the snack, or is he going to bring it to his compatriots to share? Let's see how social he's feeling. These guys really can hold their breaths for impressive amounts of time. That is typical beaver behavior. And so you'll notice when they're floating how high those ears are. Oh, there he is, popping up with the rest of them. And so trying to push out against the wall so they can get some bites. So beavers are rodents. Beavers are one of the they are the largest rodent we have around here. Certainly they're not as big as, say, the South American capybara or whatnot. But they are a very big rodent, and so they have those large, flat, orange-yellow incisors that they'll use to chew on roots, on bark, and other materials. And so they will nibble away bit by bit on their food. And so it looks like all three are trying to... Oh, I don't know if you can kind of faintly hear the little cries. Oh, he's got it! Look at that! So we'll watch them from here for a moment. If we head over towards them, they're likely just to flee to another part of the giant pond here. But there is nothing more endearing than a contented nibbling beaver enjoying a snack. Oh, are you zooming in? I'm so happy that worked. And so you can see the mouth will open somewhat up and down, but like most rodents, kind of like rabbits, guinea pigs, the majority of that jaw motion is going side to side. They have huge curled incisors, those front teeth, so two on top, two on the bottom. And if you take a look at them on X-ray, it is just astounding. It's like a giant rainbow of a tooth, a little bit sticking out in front, and then this huge 180-degree arc inside the skull. And then further back behind that, they have several premolars and molars. Visually, the premolars and molars are pretty much indistinguishable. I mean, you know which one's in front, but they don't have dramatically different shape. They're just all kind of the same continually growing teeth. And so sometimes we'll just nickname them cheek teeth, all those premolars and molars. So they'll have the big incisors, they'll have the gap between the incisors and the premolars and molars, and then they'll have all those cheek teeth. And those cheek teeth, they can really grind down that bark and that other fibrous material that they eat. And so it's side-to-side grinding motion. Now, all their teeth do continue to grow throughout the beaver's lives. And so they need to have good, healthy, fibrous material to keep those teeth in check. And that's in stark contrast to our otter here. So otter is going to get two sets of teeth, just like humans. They'll have a baby set and they'll have an adult set. And the adult set should be pretty much completely in by now on the age of this otter. And then once they grow in, that is the teeth they have. And so they are very sharp, angular, slicing teeth. And so otters are going to take their fish, going to take that crawdad, they're going to shear it into bite-sized chunks, and then they're just going to swallow those chunks relatively whole, kind of similar to a cat. And so they have a little bit of grinding capacity, but nowhere near a lot of the omnivores, let alone the rodents. And so very, very different digestive strategies and digestive organs. And so, wow, look at that. Hello. Showing us your belly. Comfortable enough for that for the moment. All right, look out. There comes a sweet potato. Look at that. It's a sweet potato. Sweet potato incoming, otter. What are you going to do? So certainly that's not going to be a tasty treat for the otter. He's not going to want to eat that, but he may just be curious enough to investigate. And so the otter and the beavers, they do have separate den boxes. While they tolerate each other's presence here in the pond, they do sleep in separate areas. And so they're not friends in that kind of degree. But I'm happy to say that they cohabitate quite peacefully. And this is not the first time we've had to pair these two species together. As you can imagine, it's not easy to build and maintain these kind of aquatic enclosures. So luckily, they tend to get along quite well. We've had more issues with some beavers not agreeing to other beavers coming around. But the 3 times that we tried having the two species together, they've been able to share the area. Got it. So the question were, are all the feet webbed on both species? And the answer is yes, absolutely. There is webbing on both the front and the back feet of both the beaver and the otter. And so you can see a little bit on the otter right now. You can see that down paw where it's kind of stretched out. You can see that webbing. They also, if you ever see the underside of the paw, there's kind of circular areas of increased grip. that they can utilize to hold on to things on the toe pads themselves. And there is going to be one more toe on the front feet than there is on the back. But yes, there's webbing to give them just that incredible maneuverability and a kind of acrobatic aquatic capacity. And so if you want to swing back over to the left, I think, we just spooked him. Oh, he was closing in on that sweet potato once more. Maybe others will be bold enough. We'll see. And so, beavers, they're just big, peaceful critters. They just want to be left to their own to do their own thing. And so, while they're curious about things, the presence of us here filming will keep them towards the far side of the pond for us, for the most part. And that pair is always sticking together, where you have one other one that's a little bit more adventurous, is the typical dynamic. And so, they split up. We'll see. If one goes, usually the other will follow after a little while. And so here at Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue, we do have to be very careful, where we don't want to desensitize these critters to the presence of humans. And so we don't cuddle these guys. We don't baby talk to them. When they do need handling, we have to stay professional and quiet. And so we don't give these guys individual names. And so they do have their intake numbers, because of course it is critically important to keep track of how they're doing as individuals in terms of maintaining weight, appropriate development, if there is any symptoms, things like that. In terms of ways to tell them apart, and so we do use microchips for things like the beavers, where we want to make sure that we can distinguish one individual from another definitively. Because the one that comes when they're all close enough, they're all siblings like this, the one that's bigger this week may be outgrown by another. So in terms of telling all that apart, closing in, there we go. There's the sweet potato. We have achieved sweet potato capture. And there we go, that deep dive. And so they really can move incredibly quick in the water. Oh, when I spin down the otter is playing with our sweet potato. And so while it's a food for the beavers, it is just a toy for the otter. And there isn't really any known communicable disease that'll spread from one individual to the other. Certainly these guys are prone to their own diseases, but there's not something that is of high concern to go from otter to beaver or beaver to otter. The big scary diseases on these guys are quite distinct. Otters can get parvo, and so that would be the big scary infectious ones, where beavers are not. So a lot of the biggest worries will be mitigated in terms of these two species. And so, what purpose is the beaver tail? So the beaver tail serves a number of important functions. It can be important for shaping the mud and the structure of the dams and the different aspects of what they manipulate. It is important for balance. Certainly it can be one heck of a motor to propel them under the water. And then it is also a display mechanism. So if you get a large male that wants to kind of show off to the females or other individuals, they can slap that tail. That will be kind of their threat behavior, just to make a big noise and a big impact. If you've ever tried to capture beavers, you'll know they'll also slap you with that tail. But they really are just they're not aggressive animals at all. They are just trying to be docile on their own. And so those are some of the functions of the beaver tail. The beaver tail, from a medical standpoint, is also the most readily accessible site of blood collection, because beaver fur, to be waterproof, it is just incredibly, impressively thick, luxurious fur. There's a reason they were hunted for their fur for so long. And so you can't just wet that down with alcohol like you can on a dog or cat and predictably get a blood sample when you need to. Again, I'm the veterinarian, so my mind will go towards the medical side. And there's also another vein on the top of the back foot that we've readily accessed when need be and so we got the one coming over here on the pull out. Oh, I pointed at him. I moved my hand. Let's see if that spooked him too much. Oh no, going for it. We got beaver. We got one beaver snacking down, another doing the grooming, especially on that belly grooming. That's one of the normal behaviors. They'll groom each other and they'll groom themselves. And so I'm glad, so glad that now we've been hanging out here long enough that they're becoming comfortable enough with our non-threatening presence to just display all those natural behaviors. Now that's different. We got the otter sneaking up on the beaver from behind. That doesn't happen too often. And so these are river otter. This is a river otter, by the way, which is a completely distinct species from our sea otter, and so not the same animal. And there's a number of other otters that are present in other parts of the world as well. So that is a big mouthful of sweet potato. Does the beaver tail store fat? Well, so it is a cartilaginous structure that it'll have a little bit of fat to it. I mean, certainly every tissue that is towards the surface will need some cushioning and thermal insulation. And so there'll be some fat in the beaver tail, but it's not like, say, a gecko tail, where it's a primary sort of a large amount of nutrition. When they get chubby, they do get chubby all around. And so in the beaver tail, if it was too kind of soft and compressible and gushy from a lot of fat, a lot of adipose tissue, it would compromise some of its other functions. And so it'll have some fat there, but not a major amount in terms of percentage of body weight. And so both, there is one area in our pond that is kind of like a stair step for them to more easily enter and exit the aquatic area, but these guys, they're capable of entering and exit several spots, and so they're choosing to be in the water this whole time. And whoa, he swam all the way from one side of the pond to the other with that sweet potato. And so I know we left him over there, and it seems like he didn't move at all, but he actually swam all the way across and back underwater, probably trying to make sure that the otter there wasn't keeping it as another plaything, as he's rolling the larger sweet potato, just kind of spinning with it, rolling it. And so these guys, they just are, the otters just are just very active. They're just on a whole different metabolism. They're on just a whole different level of energy than the beavers, and so they are always in motion, always doing something, and something that is a fun, floaty object will be something that they'll often interact with for a while. And so here you are seeing otter games. Whereas the beavers, they'll groom, they'll hang out, they'll search for food. They'll certainly interact with each other, and they'll certainly have their own version of playfulness. It's just not as athletically dynamic. Not that they're any less capable individuals in their environment. They're just on kind of a different wavelength. And so you'll notice that when the beavers are swimming, they're keeping their eyes and their ears above the water most of the time. They're leaving the head up to kind of perceive what's happening in the environment around. Whereas when the otter swims, it is going to flatten those ears closed and dive down more completely into the water more regularly. Certainly the beavers will, but if it's just a routine movement, those beavers are going to stay and being able to perceive what's happening, whereas even for routine movements, the otter will dive down and swirl around. And just a difference in their choices. The otter's ears, the ear canals, are angled, so they'll go from the side of the head up to the top of the skull, and so it is a dramatically different shape to those ear canals. They have really long, bony ear canals that will help facilitate hearing while they're floating. Oh, and then the otter's out. And so, hanging out on one of the bigger rocks there. And so, I'm happy to say this is the closest the otter has ever gotten. We would be worried about an otter that comes up close to people in terms of being able to have the right activities to keep it safe when it does eventually get out to the wild. But, so we're hitting on the half-hour mark, and I guess that's long enough to go. Okay, so we're going to invite for our last set of questions as we wrap up. And so I know there's a minute or two to lag, so we'll still hang out for a few minutes. But I guess we got a question waiting, so please.
Yeah, Juniper age 9 asks, what other things do they eat?
All right, so Juniper age 9 is asking about the diet. And so since you didn't mention specifically the otters or the beavers, we'll go through both. And so the beavers here, the diet that we offer them, in addition to the sweet potato, we'll give them leafy greens, and we'll give them, in terms of like making sure that they're getting well-rounded nutrition in terms of minerals and vitamins, we actually give them rodent blocks, which are some of the pelleted diet that the other rodent species will eat. And so in this growing phase, it's important that we're assured they have well-rounded nutrition. As they get older and older, we'll transition to more and more just more native diets. So right now, we also give them some corn and some other starches as well. But they'll be eating more and more branches, more and more tubers as they mature. But right now, a mix of rodent blocks, corn, some tubers, some other veggies. The otters are going to be getting fish and crawdads and other aquatic meat sources. And with fish, interestingly enough, if you freeze a fish, it can denature the vitamin E in the fish. Often fish are thought to be good sources of vitamin E, and so when we're feeding them frozen thawed fish, we have to supplement with vitamin E and selenium, or we get serious long-term muscle and other issues. So those are veterinary nutritional tidbits for the day in terms of frozen fish and vitamin E. Any other questions coming in?
One more. How do otters do alone since they seem to be very social?
How do otters do alone since they seem to be social? So there's no question that they do better with other otters. And so that would be the ideal, there's no two way around it. And if another otter of comparable age becomes to a rehabilitation center in Northern California, we would, by all means, try to unite the two together. And so it depends on how old the otter is when it comes in terms of how worried we are about desensitization. This one came in already past where it was eating solid food and its eyes and ears were open. It was just barely, but it was achieving all those goals. And so it will end up doing fine. I'm not worried about its release, but certainly it would have a more, and I'm glad that there are other animals around for it to interact with. And so it will do okay. It will go on to have a good, healthy lifestyle out in the wild. But of course, it would have a more enriched, more ideal environment if it was with other otters. All right, so thank you guys so much for hanging out for our midweek soak here. And so we'll leave you guys with a vision of the beavers and otters. I hope you enjoyed our relaxing hangouts with these delightful species. I hope everyone stays safe, stay healthy, and take care from Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue.